Hello friends, this is lesson 1 about big data Hadoop with Python. So my name is Muhammad Rafi Barakzai, and before starting the topics I'm going to tell you something which is important, the reference books, so you can refer these books for further readings. The first book is Professional Hadoop Solutions, then you can refer this book also, Understanding of Big Data. The third book here is Hadoop, the Definitive Guide, and the fourth book that you can refer is Hadoop with Python. Let's start, and we are going to cover these topics in this tutorial or lesson. So the first topic is what is big data itself, then we are going to talk about the evolution of big data, characteristics of big data, and then we'll talk about the real world applications of big data. Let's start with the first topic, which is asked what is big data itself. So big data, as the name itself suggests, big data means the data whose size is big, the data whose size is large or huge amount of data. So that is called big data. So it consists of large data sets that cannot be handled or managed efficiently by common DBMSs. So these common or traditional, or we can say typical database management systems are not able to handle, to protect, to store, to manage the huge amount of data, which is called the big data. So that much size, or that size of data which cannot be managed efficiently by these traditional DBMSs like Microsoft SQL Server is here, Oracle is here, MySQL, so many other DBMSs or relational DBMSs are there. So they are not able to handle, control, manage, store, protect. So that size of data or that much data is called big data. So these data sets range from terabytes to exabytes. So from here also you can easily understand that it is a huge amount of data. So it is not in the form of megabytes, gigabytes. So it is beyond that. It is in the form of terabytes, exabytes, maybe in the future zettabytes. So the size of data is so much. It is huge in size, or it is large in size, we can say. So that type of data or that size of data is called a big data. So here, according to IBM, every day we create 2.5 exabytes. It means 10 to the power of 18 bytes per day we are creating. Nearly everything around us generates the data. Nowadays it is technology, science and technology era, so it means everything around us, they are generating the data, and they are nothing but the sources of creating the data. So by that, whenever the devices or machines are there, they are generating the data. So the size of the data is keeping increasing, and it is going to some large size, which is called the big data. So big data originates from, so these are the sources, friends. Some of the sources, there are so many other sources also. Some of the sources I have listed here. So the first source that we can say is the sensors. You know that the sensors or the devices, they sense the data, and then there is some transformation system that can transform the data from the local to the cloud. Then there it may be analyzed, processed, and it is converted to some form of information, and based on that they are taking the decision. So different sensors are there. One example I will give you, for example, weather data. For example, if you are collecting the weather data, so there are so many sensors placed in different locations or positions. They are sensing the climate, the weather, and then according to that they are sensing the data and sending the data to the cloud, and there in the cloud the data is processed. Online transactions are there, like we have online shoppings. If you go, like there are multiple customers are there, they are doing online shoppings, or online banking. If you go, like transferring the money from one account to another account. So they are all like that. Whenever we are doing any transaction, that transaction is considered as data. So how many transactions are there per day, per second, per minute? So like that the number of these transactions are increasing. So keeping increasing like that, it means the size of data is increasing. so that becomes big data. So we have science and technology, different machines, different devices, different technologies, or their different form of data they are creating. So that is nothing but the source for big data. We have IoT devices, Internet of Things. Nowadays, as I said here, IBM is saying that everything around us generates the data. It means everything can be nowadays can be talking, like they can talk and they can generate the data and they can sense the data and they can send and receive the data. So they are called IoT devices. Health and education, nowadays we have online system for studying, or online classes are there for health. There are different machines or they are creating or generating the data. Mobile phones, another example for mobile phone. Whenever you are sending, receiving the messages, so your mobile phone is generating the data. It is sending the data to the cloud or maybe to the center. Servers are there and they are storing the data. Your voice will be stored there, the signals in the form of analog, in the form of digital. So it is nothing but the data. The location where you are maybe walking, so that may be sent to the center or the cloud. So another one here, the biggest source for generating the data is the social media. Nowadays the social media is the biggest source for creating or generating the data. Let me give you some examples here, then you will better understand. Around 822 tweets are there per second on Twitter, friends. Now you consider like that, per second, if we have 822 tweets, then you count that for 1 minute, for one hour, then for 1 day, like that, per year, per week. How much the size is like that? It is increasing and growing. Then let's go to consider the Facebook here. Around 510 comments are there per minute in Facebook, and we have 293,000 status are updated and 136,000 photos are uploaded on Facebook. So this is per minute. You consider like per day, per hour, how much the size is increasing. So it is nothing but big data. Then we have around 1 million customer transactions are there per day. Maybe they are shopping, they are online transactions, or they are maybe like banking transactions, or there. Now another example, around 11.5 million payments by using PayPal per day. If you consider only PayPal, so per day we will be having 11.5 million payments. So these are the sources for generating or creating a huge amount of data, which is called big data. So big data means the data whose size is big and cannot be handled and cannot be managed, or we can say it is beyond the ability of traditional database management system or relational database management systems. So they cannot protect, they cannot handle, and they cannot store that much amount of data efficiently. So the data ranges from here terabyte to exabyte. So this is called big data, and these are the sources for generating the big data. Now let's talk about the second topic, which is called the evolution of big data. Now in early 1960s, technology witnessed the problems with velocity or real-time data, we can say. Velocity means the speed, on the spot the data, how to receive on the spot the data, analyze the data and process the data. So that was the problem there, and that was the reason the database came into existence. But one thing you have to remember about the database, so it is based on primitive data types. So this was a solution in that time for the velocity or real-time data. Then in 1990s, technology witnessed the problems with variety of data. Then they faced different types of data came into the existence, like we have text, photos, like we have videos, audios, images are there. So that was the reason when the concept of NoSQL data came into existence. And nowadays the technology is facing the problems related to huge amount of data or huge volume of data, and that needs a storage, huge storage, and a complex process. So nowadays we can say that technology is facing the problems of huge amount of data, which is called the big data. How it can be captured, how it can be stored, and how it can be processed. So this is the evolution of big data in these some years which are considered. Now let's go to the characteristics of big data. So it is also called the features of big data. So what are the features of big data? The features of big data are defined as 4 V's. So what are these 4 V's? So the first V is the volume of data. So in big data, as the name itself suggests, the big data means the size is large, the amount is more, the quantity of data is so much, which is generated by an organization. Maybe internal or external. Internal means the organization itself, they are generating the data every day. For example, they may be using, they have an MIS system, a DBMS, they are storing the data every day, their transactions will be stored there. So like that, per day, how much transactions are there, and the size is growing like that, per unit of time, per day, per minute, per second, like that. So this is nothing but showing the size of the data is growing, and that is called the volume, and this is the first feature of big data. The size is more, the amount of data we have more there, and the quantity of data is large enough. And then we have the variety of data. So big data is not a homogeneous data. It means it is not similar type. Different types of data we have there. Maybe structured data, maybe semi-structured data, and maybe unstructured data. But most of the data there we have is unstructured data. 70 to 80% of data what we have in big data, they are unstructured data. So the volume and then variety of data. Now let's see the third V here. The third V is the velocity, the speed, or we can say the rate at which the data is generated, the data is captured, and the data is shared. So the speed is more, and it should be more, because we need real-time data. If we need real-time data, so there should be a high speed generating system to generate and capture and share the data. Otherwise, if the data is received late and then processed late and then predicted late, so it means no use, and the prediction is wrong. Let me give you an example, the same example as I said before, weather system. In the weather system, if the sensors are not generating or sensing the data on the spot, and they are not sending it to the cloud, so if the decision is taken place there, it is wrong. It should be taken on the spot. It is on the real data. So that is why it should be of high speed, and that is nothing but the velocity of big data. Otherwise the decision is wrong, because if you are taking the decision for 2 days, if the data is received late, then that decision is wrong then, because it has already happened, but now you decided this will happen. So it has already happened there. So it should be so much fast, and so much fast it should be generated, captured, and shared. Then we have the veracity here. The fourth V is called the veracity. Veracity means the accuracy and the consistency of data. Since we need real-time data, or data, big data deals with real-time data, so there should be accurate data and consistent data, because there is no much time to analyze the data, because the data should be accurate and consistent data. Then it goes to the analysis and then process, and then the decision is taken place. Otherwise, if the data is not accurate and consistent data. So what will happen? Then it means we cannot predict the output. Analysis is done on correct and consistent data, therefore the data should be accurate and consistent. We deal with real-time data, it should be accurate, consistent, and it should be high speed, and there is definitely different types of data, and the size is also more or large. So these are the 4 V's or features of big data. Now let's go to the next topic, the real world applications of big data. Now let's see here some real world applications of big data, how people or how organizations or agencies are using big data for their daily life or daily or real life transactions maybe or services. Now if we consider transportation system, in transportation system big data has greatly improved transportation services. Like what? Such as traffic jams from real-time data. See, real-time data. There we have different cameras are there in different circles, and these circles the cameras are capturing the images every time, every second, every minute. So they are sending the data to the cloud. There the data will be analyzed, processed, and then the decision may be taken, like where the traffic is or the jam is, and what time it happened, and what was the reason. So if we want to take the decision like this, the place, the time, and the reason, so we need a huge amount of data, and also the data should be real-time data. Now let's go to the second application in education. So again here the big data plays, here also we have nowadays distance learning, we have over vast geographical areas, like we have online learning, we have distance learning. The teachers are analyzing the students' ability to comprehend and thus impart education effectively in accordance with each student's needs. So it is like it plays a good how to say, important role there in education also, the big data. Now let's see here the travel. So nowadays, for example, if you consider any travel agency, so there we have whenever you go for booking a ticket, so how they are booking your ticket? So they are using big data, booking flight tickets, like checking the number of seats, how many seats are empty, or how many seats are booked already, what is the offer, the offers, the time, departure, and also arrival date, departure date, the routes. So everything's are nothing but real-time data, and it should be accurate, it should be of high speed, and it is of large size itself. So now the government is also using the big data. Let me give you an example here, like by using big data the government take decisions about various issues such as preventive and corrective measures on time. Another example is like they are taking decision on weather data, like they are forecasting or maybe predicting tomorrow's weather, whether it is raining, it is cloudy, it is whether it is like any other calamity, something is here. So like that they are using the big data, or the big data plays a good role there also. So healthcare, big data helps doctors to analyze the requirements and medical history of every patient and provide services to them. And also they are using this big data to improve their researches and develop the practices. So they are using big data. Everywhere we have big data, and this big data is reside on different servers. From these different servers they are taking the data, analyzing and processing the data, and based on that they are taking the decisions. Like here they are using for research purpose, or maybe they are using for understanding their patient services, like the medicine, whatever prescriptions are given. So based on the data which is already stored on the cloud, they are taking the data and analyzing that. And now here, web-based business like online shoppings are there. Big data helps to offer more appealing recommendations. Like whenever you are opening any online shopping website, whenever you are clicking on some like any image or any maybe like if you want to buy a shirt, a t-shirt, if you click on that, so the system is recommending you many other things related to that, like maybe the tie, the shoes, the coat, the paint, like that, and different brands will be recommended to you. So how it is done? It is done because of the big data, the data which is already stored there. That is nothing but the preference of the users, sorry, the customers, their likes, their stars which are given, or maybe the comments which they have written. So based on that, the data is analyzed, stored, and that is huge amount of data. It is called the big data. The sports, like tracking ticket sales and even for tracking team strategies. So this is nothing but the big data, like online booking the tickets. Like you can understand where will be the game placed, where they are playing the game, like that. The strategy, what is the strategy of the team? Like for example, if you consider like cricket, every time you can predict, not you, like the system is predicting what will happen after the 3rd hour, the 4th hour, the 5th hour. If it is the strategy, you can easily understand there are different charts are there, you can see and you can analyze. And how that is analyzed? Based on real time and big data which is already stored. So based on that, they are taking the decisions. So I hope you understood this much about big data, friends. We talked about what is big data, evolution of big data, then we talked about the features of big data, and I gave you some real world applications, examples of big data. I hope you understood this much.